My community is in anguish right now because of an officer-involved shooting. A black man, Eric Logan, killed by a white officer.
On June 16th, 54-year-old Eric Logan was shot and killed by former South Bend police officer Sergeant Ryan O'Neill. O'Neill was responding to a 911 call reporting car break-ins when he confronted Logan. O'Neill says Logan approached him with a knife when he opened fire. Logan's death has underscored the racial blind spot of the 2020 presidential candidate and South Bend mayor, Pete Buttigieg. Since the shooting, Buttigieg's civil rights record has been scrutinized, from the racial makeup of his local police force to the policies of the South Bend Police Department.
The policy was less restrictive on how and when police officers can use force, including deadly force, compared to the average across the country. And as you know, the average across the country is also woefully inadequate.
Samuel Sinyangwe is a policy and data analyst focused on police reform. He's reviewed hundreds of law enforcement policies across the country, including South Bend, Indiana.
Police departments that require de-escalation are 15% less likely to kill people than police departments that do not require de-escalation. What we found in looking through South Bend's policy was that they did not require officers to use de-escalation.
South Bend PD and thousands more police departments across the country buy pre-written policy manuals from a for-profit company called Lexipol. While the police are ultimately responsible when carrying out this policy, activists and onlookers worry about how much power a private company has in how public safety officers do their jobs.
There were some shortcuts taken by the city of South Bend to write their policy that many cities across the country are taking, but that frankly are not consistent with a commitment to ending police violence. What they did was they decided to contract with a private corporation called Lexipol to write the policy for them.
Sure enough, at the bottom of every page of South Bend's Police Department policy manual is Lexipol LLC. Lexipol is by far the largest policymaker in American policing. The company has grown from partnering with 40 California-based public safety agencies in 2003 to more than 3,500 agencies across 35 states in 2019. UCLA professor Joanna Schwartz co-authored The Privatization of Police Policymaking. In her article, Schwartz calls Lexipol the single most influential actor in police policymaking. And here's why.
When Lexipol makes a decision about, for example, whether to allow officers to review body camera footage before testifying, they decide that's what the rules should be, that they should be allowed to review that footage. And then it becomes policy in 3,000 law enforcement agencies in a moment based on their decision.
If you want a group of people, let's just take a police department, to operate within the law, which the law protects people's civil liberties, then you want to have good, solid policy.
Bill McCullough is the director of professional services for Lexipol and a former law enforcement officer.
It's not about, hey, chief, we can keep you from getting sued, or, in some slimy way, get out from underneath a lawsuit. It's no, hey, chief, we can help you have solid policy, help you train your people so that they're treating your citizenry properly, the way you want them to be treated, the way they deserve to be treated. And therefore, then you're not going to get sued.
But in many cases, Lexipol won't go beyond what is considered settled law, which can leave Lexipol's policy manual out of step with what community members or even other law enforcement organizations recommend. For example, when 11 national law enforcement organizations, including the Fraternal Order of Police, wrote the National Consensus Policy on Use of Force, Lexipol's co-founders shot it down.
What we're talking about are the policies that determine how and whether police use force, including deadly force, against members of the public. These are decisions that should be made in a democratic way, decisions that should be made with input from communities that should have the power to determine how their tax dollars are being spent on policing and what type of policing they receive.
In a way, McCullough agrees with Sinyangwe that policymaking is a collaborative process, but the individual agencies are responsible for making these subsequent changes.
This is not a boilerplate process. The agency needs to take it the next step and customize it to make sure that it's applicable, practical, and functional for their organization's purposes.
From use of force to body cameras, a lot of Lexipol's strategy rests on the action or inaction of local departments. But Schwartz points out Lexipol provides some mixed messaging here.
If you go on Lexipol's site, you will see testimonials from chiefs in small agencies who talk about their ability to relax, knowing that Lexipol has them covered, that they know that their policies are legally sound. The message that that sends is that if you subscribe to Lexipol, your work is essentially done.
Lexipol explains whenever they issue changes to a department's policy manual, that department has to accept, customize, or reject the change before it becomes effective. But they couldn't tell us exactly how many police departments accept changes versus customizing their own, or how substantive those customizations are. For now, the South Bend Police Department will not grant Newsy an interview or issue a statement to discuss their relationship with Lexipol or the shooting of Eric Logan. And while a special prosecutor is investigating the shooting, no criminal charges have been filed against Sergeant O'Neill.